Hi everybody, and welcome to Generation XYZ. It's been a bit of a break for me, so I'm back now and looking forward to the rest of the year. Though the games seem relentless, they just keep coming. COVID injuries, COVID scares, the FA Cup, the flood of fixtures this month. There's just been soccer every single day.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the way the guys are playing too. You know, the legs are just gone. And like we've said at length in other videos, it's going to be the team with the biggest squad depth probably that ends up, challenging for the title rather than the best starting 11.
Well, we thought that with Chelsea, but, it's Chelsea in the last 8 games have gone on a nosedive. They were top of the table, and let's start with Chelsea. To me, the most disappointing team this year in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think
that would have been Arsenal without a shadow of a doubt. But then 3 wins gets them, 3 wins and they're all forgiven.
Well, I mean, a disappointment sort of like comes with expectation, and I don't know if the expectation on Arsenal was as great as it was on Chelsea after they spent 160 million pounds in the transfer window.
Firstly, you guys are right in terms of the number of games. But just to correct Kevin, it's 4 wins, eh? Not just 3. It's 4 wins. All 4 wins out of the last 5 games. I remember that. So whether maybe the last 5, one of them was last year, but Arsenal's definitely picked up form. I mean, you guys spoke about teams having to play all the time, and Chelsea with the squad that they have, I can't believe they're struggling that much. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it's a lot of players. They need to gel. They need to bed in. They need to do this. They need to do that. If you go back to 2005, I think, when Jose Mourinho came into Chelsea, almost a similar thing happened where he opened the checkbook with Roman Abramovich, spent a lot of the players. Matteo Kezman came in. There was just a lot of players that he bought. I think Ian Robin as well came in at that time. And he was able to win the league within his first goal. And I'm not expecting Lampard to win the league, but, I mean, they should be Leicester at this moment. Yeah. And with the quality players that they have, you watch Chelsea and you say, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, James, Edward Mendy, Thiago Silva, and how in the world is this team struggling? And the only thing you can point to is it has to be the manager. It can't be anything else, because I think another manager would have gotten results out of this team.
Yeah, but I mean, such is the league this year, the Sheikhs. I mean, it's, one stage. At the beginning of the year, I think we had we weren't affected by results and short snaps of the season coming into focus. And our opinion was that Lampard would be found wanting. And then, they hit a streak of good form. And you figured, okay, they're with their depth and everything else, to me, they looked like a decent bet for the title. And then in the last 8 games, I think they've gotten 7 points. In the last 10 games, they've gotten, 10 points out of a possible 30. Yeah. And that's a winning percentage of 33% over the last 10 games. And in this league where it's so close this year, you just can't have that. And I think that there's no manager under more pressure than Frank Lampard right now. Because if you look at it this way, he spent, what was it, 63 million or 43 million pounds on Werner?
Yeah.
And Werner, I mean, he would have known the system, and Lampard seems to be playing him out of position. So is it that he's being played out of position? Because they still scored 33 goals. It's not as if he hasn't scored any. I think he's got 4 goals in 11 games. But he's just not playing in the same position. I mean, he's a poacher, a natural poacher. And playing him out wide is not the ideal scenario for someone that's a natural poacher.
Shakes?
Yeah, I do agree. I think there is a bit of that. Timo Werner has been played out of position. I think even in the first game, Kai Havertz as well, I looked at the position he was playing him in. I wasn't really sure that was his kind of position. And it's crazy to think after 19 games, he's still trying to figure out what's his best 11. After 19 games? I mean, 10, okay, but 19, you're still trying to figure out, where do I play this guy? Where must I play this guy? Where must I play this guy? I just do not understand. And I thought Timo Werner was brought in to definitely play up front. That was the mantra. I don't think he's been given the chance to. I think there's one game he played up front against Man City, but that's one game. He has not been given a run of games to play up front. So I can't believe. I think if it's not Frank Lampard, I think Chelsea would have sacked the manager. I really do believe that.
Well, the Chelsea haven't beaten a team in the top that has that's above them. They're in the top 10. They haven't beaten anybody, any of their big rivals.
Yeah, you got to put their run of form into perspective in terms of who those sort of 8-9 games were against across competitions. When they weren't conceding any goals, when they were winning. Now they've had some tougher opposition. The season's gone on a bit longer. It's not quite the same glimpse of hope. And I just think by the halfway point, match day 19 is the halfway point of the league, we've got a lot more clarity about a lot of the teams we were uncertain about. We've come to the conclusion Aston, Everton aren't really going to be contenders, for the first 5-6 rounds. We're on the fence. Kind of comes to the conclusion it's going to be Man City up there, Man United have proved sort of what their quality actually is now once the Champions League is kind of out of the picture for them. But Chelsea's the one side where there's no more clarity on match day 19 than there was on match day 1, but there's been a host of different results for them.
And they've got two relatively simple games in comparison to the schedule they've been playing. So the pressure is massive on Lampard. I don't think that he can if he loses or gets a draw in the next two upcoming games, I think he's gone.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the Chelsea faithful will so easily let Lampard go, but we'll see. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, Abramovich is not the sort of guy that plays to his audience, plays to his fan base.
That's true.
He spent 210 million. He's going to want some sort of results. Sitting at the upper echelon of the medium table, in the mid table, is not exactly what he paid for this year.
In terms of if we're chatting sort of top 4, we haven't really spoken about Leicester at all this season. They've probably been the team that's been spoken about by us.
Well, if they've been absolutely, they've gone under the radar. And not only did they beat Chelsea yesterday, but they should have been 5-0. I mean, they dominated Chelsea. Chelsea looked clueless.
What are your guys' thoughts on Leicester, though? Because they are, especially from the perspective of people who are all betting, they're such a tough side because you always get decent odds on them, and then you think, okay, this is a pretty guaranteed match. I can get 70% return on Leicester to, beat some sort of bottom of the table side, and then they draw or they lose 1-0, and it's what? And then you kind of forget about them. They're cruising 5th or 6th. And all of a sudden, they're top of the table. They've just beaten Chelsea. Chelsea aren't an easy team to beat. I know they've been dropping points, but it's not like they've been losing.
Well, this league is so funny, Ollie. It's inexplicable how. I think that Chelsea loss to Arsenal really reverberated and started the crisis of confidence in that change room. Yeah. They were beaten by a team that was in such poor form. That started the rot for me. Since they lost to Arsenal, they've just been on a downward spiral.
Yeah. There was this wheel the other day, I think in the Daily Mail, that showed Sheffield United had to just win one game, which they then did, and the wheel basically worked out to show that every single team so far this Premier League is capable of beating every team based on the way the results have worked. So for every team that one team's beaten, they've beaten another team, and it goes on, and when has that ever happened in recent years?
Well, I can't remember it happening in any time where the league has been so close. Certainly before my time. So, for me, Chelsea's been the most disappointing team this year in terms of what they spent.
Who's disappointed me as well, I must say, is Wolves. I understand they let a lot of talent go, but Wolves have just not been a good side. Simply put, there's and they again a side that gets decent.
Well, they
odds.
lost to West Brom 3-2.
They week in and week out they get decent odds, and they're just not winning the kind of matches that you expect teams of that level. They're not necessarily a top 4 side, but a quality side. You expect them to be winning their home matches at least comfortably, and they're not. They're dropping points at home.
Well, if you have a look at the impact that Jota has had in his playing at Liverpool, I think he scored in every game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And Liverpool are missing him desperately. How much would a club like Wolves, without the talent base of Liverpool, be missing someone like a Jota? Yeah. So how realistic is it? You look at Wolves and they're trading on a bit of reputational value from last year. So
Another thing I think also Wolves is also suffering from is the fact that Jimenez actually got the head injury against Arsenal, and ever since then, if you watch some of their games, they don't have a focal point anymore, like someone up front that they can cross balls into. They've tried Fabio Silva, but he's still too young, inexperienced, doesn't know the league as well. And to my surprise here, when I'm looking, the Wolves have only won one game since they beat Arsenal at the Emirates, and that game 2-1. They've only won one league game, and that was against Chelsea. But yeah, but, I mean
Well, it just goes to show, like everything we're saying, in terms of how this Premier League's worked, is Chelsea's then the side that Wolves goes and beats.
Yeah.
But another team for me deserves chatting about is Liverpool, and their situation at the moment. We've spoken about how much they're missing Jota on attack, but attack isn't an issue for Liverpool. There's just been this complete oversight of the sort of like Van Dijk-sized hole that exists in their back four or back three, however they decide to play, and there's only intent showed now from Jurgen Klopp in the last week about making a summer signing to cover Van Dijk, and he was very sort of adamant that the guys within the squad could do it. But I think in 18 or 19 Premier League matches, and I think there's been like 16 or 17 different centre back pairings. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think they can go the rest of the season and still contend with using the current centre backs they've got, or do you think someone needs to be brought in to cover Van Dijk?
yeah, no, I think with regards to Liverpool, they have to. When I'm watching Liverpool, they have to definitely get a centre back. They have to buy a centre back. In my opinion, I think they'd have to buy two, depending on how long Gomez and Van Dijk is out for. Because when you put Fabinho in as well as Henderson in defense, you sort of lose a lot in midfield. And you could see that even against Manchester United, they just do not look the same. I think.
But it's not so much about. Do you think it's not so much about just the centre back pair? It's like what those guys do in attack as well. I mean, it's all right to have someone behind the ball and it's going to defend well, but those guys are critical to the attacking makeup of Liverpool in terms of the way that they move the ball from the back to the front. Huh?
No, I definitely agree in terms of them having to move the ball is very crucial in terms of the game, because even with Van Dijk, there was a lot of long balls that he would play that would find Salah or that would find Mane. But I'm speaking from a sense of you can't have Henderson and Fabinho at centre back. Look, Fabinho's done really well, but you can't have those two guys at centre back. They are crucial midfielders, and they need to be playing further forward because of what they do in terms of winning the ball back and distributing it. And also, I think another thing is the front three. I don't know if they're fatigued or something, but they've played a lot together for the last 3 years, and I don't know if they're tired or and especially for Firmino as well.
There's a spark missing, eh?
The spark that is definitely missing, and unbelievably, I actually went to bed where their odds to win the league has changed, guys, to now 4.80.
And City have come into 1.55, huh?
Yeah, so City are now favourites, which I totally understand that. But as for Liverpool, then you get Jurgen Klopp after one of the games speaking about making top four is the priority for Champions League basis. And I'm like, why is he changing the tune from winning the league to making top four now? It's almost as if like, is there an acceptance that he's accepting that the league is just not going to be possible this year?
There's no way he's doing that. I think that's just a bit of showmanship to try and take some of the pressure off managing expectations. I mean, they had that 7-goal game, and then after that game, who'd they beat 7-0? Was it Crystal Palace? They hammered Crystal Palace, and then since that game, I think they've scored 1 goal, huh?
They've only scored 1 goal only, yes.
And that was against West Bromwich Albion, who'd concede. I could score against West Bromwich Albion, I think, huh? So to me, it's really crazy the way that the league's unfolding. I think at almost 5 to 1, it kind of offers a little bit of incentive to back a Liverpool now. At 2.5, and that's not much of an incentive for me to jump in on a Liverpool. But I think that the bookies have now got it a bit a bit overpriced. Liverpool winning the title at 4.85.
Look, you could get lucky and have arbitraged your bets. I mean, if you put down Chelsea, you know, when they were like I think 7-1 at one stage to win, and if you put down a little bit now on Liverpool at 4.55 and stuff. Granted, Man City don't win the league. You could end up getting some decent return on your money at the end of the season, betting on 3 of the sides too.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's you've got Chelsea, the most disappointing. Leicester, who we've not really discussed much about, but you can see the effect that Brendan Rodgers has. They've got a great team chemistry.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a team that's managing a lot of big egos, and because of the geographical location, they also fly under the radar from that point of view. They're not in the limelight of a London club or anything like that. So, you know, they just keep ticking along.
What are your guys' thoughts on Spurs? Do you think they're still in the running at all? I mean, you know, Shakes, you were very strong in your opinion a few weeks ago that Spurs is out. They continue to fly under the radar with the result here and there the last few weeks. What are your guys' thoughts?
Oh, man, I gotta tell you, man, Spurs has been so inconsistent for me, and I never ever thought they would ever win the title. As for now, top 4, that's looking a little bit tricky. They win one game, they draw the other game, and they win again. I mean, looking at their last 5, 2 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. They're very inconsistent as well, and they're heavily reliant on Son and Kane to sort of do something within the game. So you sort of wonder if one of them was to go out, what would Tottenham look like? You know, so I know. Look, I'm sure they're not going to win the league. I can get that out of the way. And as for top 4, on the other hand, I think it's a bit tricky. I think they can make that, but Leicester's flying, man, and Leicester's really flying. I think City's going to be there. I think Liverpool's going to be there. And whether we like it or not, I think United might be there too, you know, so...
I'm still of the...
You know,
I just still feel that United are just on a run at the moment that isn't really representative of what that team is. And I think that run's going to end at some point. You know, we still do have 19 matches left of the season. And I don't think the United that we're seeing is the United that's going to stay for the whole season. It's just my gut feeling, but...
Yeah, we're at the halfway mark of the season,
and it's a good shout, Oliver, for you to say that, because I also am waiting for when United have to deal with also Europa League. So Thursday, Sundays, with some FA Cup games. I'm really waiting to see how they deal with that and see if they're able to carry on the run that they're having. Because at the moment, it's just the league, FA Cup, they're in there. But once Europa League comes back, I would really love to see how do they actually cope with having to deal with the league. But so far, so good for them, I think. I just think they can win games now. The way they played against Liverpool was very impressive. So as for Spurs, league, no way, it's not going to happen. As for top 4, I'll say 60% no and 40% yes.